Welcome to Politics and More. Today I'd like to address the latest myth about the president that's been circulating in Republican circles. And the myth has also gotten a certain amount of play in the mainstream media. So let's nip it in the bud right now. It goes as follows. The president really doesn't want to pass any serious legislation. Instead, he'd prefer that the legislation fail so that he'll have a club with which to beat up the Republicans in the midterms in 2014. Now, my view on this is that not only is it an incredibly cynical point of view, obviously, but it's an incredibly dumb point of view also. And I'd like to explain why. First of all, presidents are only credited by history for the things that they do, not the things that they don't do. Any president in his second term is concerned about legacy, is concerned about the record that he leaves behind, the level of accomplishment that he has. The idea that the president would be playing games with such major issues as comprehensive immigration reform or the first president to pass new gun legislation in a generation, that's unthinkable to me. Secondly, the notion that he wants it to fail suggests that he has some long-term tactical perspective whereby things don't pass tomorrow, but maybe they pass 2 years from now. That idea of timing legislation as if there's an infinite window in which legislation can be passed would be crazy. And the president is way too smart to think in those terms. It's a little bit like a football team that says, well, let's not score right now. Let's score 5 minutes from now. Well, you don't know 5 minutes from now whether you're even going to have the ball. And the same with the political circumstances that the president finds himself in. If there's anything that we've come to understand over the last 5 years, it's that there are sudden, unforeseen events that sort of take over the public discourse and sometimes push away the things that you were planning to do. So it would be an incredibly dangerous strategy on his part to think in that way. But the most important reason why Obama would not be thinking in terms of letting legislation fail is that the whole premise is false. He gets far more benefit, far more political bounce, far more currency out of getting things done than not getting things done. Let's say, for example, that comprehensive immigration reform passes, and Marco Rubio is a major player, and John McCain is a player, Lindsey Graham's a player. You know how much bounce the Republicans will get out of the passage of comprehensive immigration reform? Zilch, zero, nothing. And the reason for that is that the whole country, and in particular the Hispanic community, have followed closely the history of comprehensive immigration reform. They remember, going back to the days of George W. Bush, that the Republicans basically smacked their own president in the face and wouldn't go along with his idea. They understand that during the 2012 presidential campaign, they were treated with enormous disdain by all of the Republican candidates. And even if this legislation passes, it will pass with foot dragging, it'll pass with a lot of anger and complaints from the Republicans, and it'll pass with an enormous number of amendments meant to water it down and impose undue burdens on undocumented individuals before they can actually fulfill their path to citizenship. So the Hispanic community and the American electorate are not stupid. The Republicans will get very, very little out of the passage of comprehensive immigration reform, which is one reason why I think it may not pass. I think the Republicans realize that there's very little gain to be had by them. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the best reason for Republicans to pass immigration legislation. because it's the right thing to do. That's the reason to do it. And if you don't think of it in those terms, if you don't have any serious and sincere commitment to that issue and are expecting to get some party gain out of it, I think you're going to be very disappointed. And I think they may realize exactly what I'm saying, if they already haven't realized it. In fact, I think they perhaps are the ones that are looking for a reason to have it fail and then blame it on the president when it doesn't pass. So that's probably the biggest reason. The president will get an enormous bounce, an enormous sense of gratitude from the Hispanic community if it passes, and I think the Republicans will get very little. So whether it passes or not is kind of a lose-lose for the Republicans. Finally, there's a last reason why President Obama is not thinking in these sort of Machiavellian tactical terms. And I saved this reason for last because it's such an old-fashioned idea. It's such a quaint idea that we don't think in these terms very much anymore. He actually believes in these bills. He believes in comprehensive immigration reform. He believes that if you pull millions of people out of the shadows and make them full economic players, not only will they prosper, but the whole country will prosper from the sort of renewed energy in the undocumented worker community. He actually believes that pre-K is a foundation for educational success for kids. He believes in that. He believes that the Affordable Care Act really will redound to the benefit of the entire country. And it makes politics a lot simpler and a lot more joyful when you actually believe in the positions that you're taking. And we sometimes forget that there are people that go into politics to serve. And so what we have here is a Republican Party that really has no affirmative agenda. Their entire agenda is to thwart the president. They've come up with an idea where they project this on him and say, no, no, he's trying to thwart the legislation, not us. He doesn't want it to pass. Well, think of all the reasons that I've mentioned the next time you hear that notion. He doesn't need a club. He'll get enormous benefit from the historians by having things pass. You can't time legislation. You have to strike when the iron's hot. And he believes in what he's doing. And that's a profound advantage that the president has over his political adversaries. I'm Jeff Rowan. Talk to you next time.